So I promised to do a few more 2023 release themed videos after I got back from Japan. This is the first of 2 or 3 coming up in the next few days. Today I'm talking about men's designer releases, all 2023 launches and ranked. So find out what they are coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's Sebastian. We're talking about men's designer releases. There was a ton of them, and I happen to have 20 here, and I'm going to do a ranked list for you guys. It was a year of pretty decent releases, and I think by the time you get to the front, you'll notice what kind of fragrances I prefer over the others. But there's some surprises here you're going to discover. And yeah, like I said, it was a pretty good year of fragrances, but there were some duds as well, like this one starting at number 20. It's AWAKEN Distilled. I was never a really big fan of AWAKEN to begin with, and the folks behind TUMI decided to launch a more extrait de parfum concentration fragrance. But for me, this one just fell short of what I thought it was going to be. It mostly smells like the original, but more concentrated, which the original to me is one of the most boring fragrances, and I felt like it didn't deserve to be spoken much about. I did a video on it. I mentioned in that video, I did ranking of all the fragrances from TUMI. And again, this one, a little better than the original, but not much more better than the original. So that's why I'm putting AWAKEN Distilled by TUMI at number 20. Moving on to the house of YSL, it's MYSLF, this one right here. This is, okay, I think this might sell a lot of bottles, but for people that just want something like a dumb reach, it smells pleasant. It's not anything groundbreaking or exciting, but it will satisfy folks who want something fresh, musky, earthy, and citrusy for sure, because there's loads of citruses here, like bergamot and orange flower. And the patchouli gives you that kind of sexy edge. Not that I'm saying this is really sexy. And then, of course, the Ambrofix, which is that kind of molecular, ambery, musky, woody, earthy kind of a note. Boring fragrance to me, but I'm sure there's a, audience for this stuff. So MYSLF at number 19. So as I'm ranking these fragrances, do let me know if you're a fan of these fragrances. Moving on to the house of Dolce & Gabbana, Light Blue Pour Homme Summer Vibes. This one right here. Do really love the bottle. It's mostly to buy. I bought these to collect because I'm a collector and I love collecting perfume bottles. And I like this whole, it's Italian, kind of Southern Italian tile work, although it reminds me of Portuguese tile. But to me, it's more Italian, I believe, since the brand is Italian. So I was never really a big fan of the original Pour Homme from Dolce & Gabbana with the light blue series. I felt like the woman's was a lot better than the men's. And this one, it's a little different than the original, but not by much. And I'm not the biggest fan of this one. In the end, it has Cypress, Sicilian lemons, and Amberwood, kind of similar to the Ambrofix. So there's not a lot of going on with this one, and it just falls flat. A little better than MYSLF, because in the end, it is got a little more interesting things happening, but not by a lot. So it's ranked fairly low. And unfortunately, the only thing that this is good for me is the bottle, because the bottle is super gorgeous and I decided to buy it to collect. But number 17, this is a sad one. Sadly, it's ended up right down here. This is from the house of Cartier. It's PASHA de Cartier Noir ABSOLU. This one, once again, has a really gorgeous looking bottle, but the fragrance itself is quite boring. I felt really let down with this particular fragrance, especially the previous version. The parfum was so good, so good, but this is just a dud, I think, quite a dud. Not as bad as AWAKEN Distilled, but also not really that great. I mean, I'm sure there's an audience for this, but for me, it's not an exciting fragrance. It's burnt wood, caramelized sugar, and it's fairly boring in that way that you smell the smokiness, and then, of course, the caramelly, sugary touches and some sweet touches. And apparently, it's still considered a fougere, but for me, it's not necessarily an intense take on a fougere. It's mostly very smoky, kind of woody, sweet stuff that's in there. In the end, gorgeous looking bottle, and at this time also, they've made the bottle decantable, but I think this one's unfortunately a dud. That's why it's ranked really low. So PASHA de Cartier Noir ABSOLU at number 17. And this one, I actually started hating the more I started testing it out. And I bought it because it's an ELIXIR concentration. for a fragrance series that I don't really care for, Ralph's Club by Ralph Lauren. The ELIXIR is definitely the best out of the entire collection of fragrances. I think there's 3. But in the end, as I was wearing it, I was really noticing the DNA of the original in here, and I started hating it because of that. But for me, when I first tested it out at the store, at Macy's where I got this, I thought, wow, this is really nice. It's highly concentrated. It's got some resins. It's got patchouli. It's got, powdery touches and earthy touches, aromatics, but it's just got that original DNA that I'm not really digging as much. But definitely better than the original, and also highly concentrated. It's the ELIXIR, so it's a parfum concentration. And, there's an audience for this, definitely better than the original, like I said, but for me, it reminds me too much of the original. So here, unfortunately, it's ranked at number 16. And it's ranked higher than the other fragrances is because it's got a lot going for it. It's got the extract or the parfum concentration, so it's very highly concentrated. And yeah, it's not like a wow fragrance, but is everything else in this list wow? We're going to get to a section, and then everything after is going to be a little tighter in the race of, ranking the fragrances, but still at number 16, it's a bit of a disappointment with Ralph's Club ELIXIR by Ralph Lauren. All right, next up at number 15, it's Bulgari Man Rain Essence, this one right here. So this one, to me, it's that kind of watery take on the original Bulgari Man, and they have really milked this collection. They've got lots of releases and flankers from this collection. Kind of gets boring after a while. The previous version, I can't remember the name now, was slightly better, and I felt like also they were a little very similar, like they had reminders of one another. It's also that kind of watery effect here. We've got White Lotus in this Bulgari Man Rain Essence, so it's got a kind of a rainy kind of watery effect, and it's coming from the White Lotus note in this, which gives you that kind of watery effect. It acts like you're wearing rain or water in this case. Musk, green tea, oranges, White Lotus, amber, and gaiac. It's definitely better than the previous fragrances, so it's ranked, of course, and this is what I'm preferring more than the previous version, the Ralph Lauren Ralph's Club ELIXIR, and so on. But definitely what comes after this is definitely much better for me. So this is Bulgari Man Rain Essence from the House of Bulgari at number 15. And the next fragrance, going to the House of TUMI once again, and TUMI sadly ended up here at the bottom. This is not as bottom as the first fragrance, but still it's not high up the list. It's 19 Degree, this one. I do have to say, this bottle is super sexy. Really love this bottle. But sadly, the scent itself is not the best. Still, I prefer Continuum from this house the most. But this one, I think it's definitely worth checking out if you like the idea of fragrances like this. It does have a little bit of a reminder of the DNA of the original TUMI fragrances as well. And this one features notes of black musk, leather, sandalwood, suede, blackcurrant, birch water. So it does have a watery effect. It's very fresh. There's a freshness about it. Leather does come in. The woods definitely come in as well. And then, of course, there's some light fruity touches in there as well. But the fragrance has a reminder of the AWAKEN and some of the other fragrances from the line. So it just didn't, excite me as much as I wanted to be excited by it. But again, very sexy looking bottle and still higher than the previous fragrances for sure. So 19 Degree at number 13. And the next one's going to the House of Rocha. This is Rocha Man Intense. I wanted something really intense here. I don't have that. But as a smell, I really love it, and I do enjoy it more than the previous fragrances. And this goes and takes me back to the 90s, the late 90s when the original came out. I really love the combination of the lavender, vanilla, cappuccino, cedar, and citruses. And the cool thing is, around the time this came out, I was gifted by a friend a vintage bottle of the original in Eau de Toilette. And when I tested them side by side, as a smell, they were fairly similar, but when this is called intense, I did not get the intense that I wanted. That's why this one's ranked low. It's not necessarily ranked high, but as a smell, I really love it. I love the combination, really do, with the lavender, vanilla, cappuccino, coffee-like qualities, milky qualities with the citruses and cedar. So as a smell, I think it's great, but with an intensity, I think it's a little bit of a dud, sadly. But I don't know. Some people don't care about the intensity. You can, replenish. These are designer fragrances, not necessarily something that's extremely expensive. But then again, some of you want some awesome longevity, which this one unfortunately didn't have. So this is Rocha Man Intense by Rocha, and that's at number 13. And then at the House of Guerlain, I'm featuring 2 fragrances from Guerlain here from the men's collection. And by the way, if I haven't already mentioned this, I have heard from the grapevine that there's going to be 3 highly concentrated men's fragrances releases that are soon to launch from Guerlain. So stay tuned for that. I don't know which ones, but most likely from the male collection. Is it Habit Rouge? Is it Heritage? Maybe one of the L'Homme Ideals? We shall see. But I believe they're extract or parfum concentration releases coming from Guerlain soon. So wait for that. But this is L'Homme Ideal Platine Privé. And to me, it does remind me very much of Cologne, the Guerlain L'Homme Ideal Cologne, which got discontinued. And this I think satisfies if you don't have the original Cologne, even though it came in a white rimmed bottle. Still, I think it'll do it justice. It might have some minute differences, but in the end, I think it's very close and it's very fresh with that whole L'Homme Ideal DNA. It's got the warmth in there and things like that, like the green almonds that are in here. The green almonds versus the regular almonds, the fresh almonds, it's a delicacy. I love eating green almonds. So when you actually experience the flavor of that, they're completely different than almonds in general that are dried and turned into nuts. So I get that in here. It's very fresh and it does have that kind of green earthiness that the green almonds has in comparison to the actual nuttiness of the real almonds. So I like that about it. So that's why I've ranked it here higher at number 12. It's L'Homme Ideal Platine Privé from the House of Guerlain. Then we've got Gentleman's Society by Givenchy. So it's Givenchy Gentleman's Society. So there's a new version of this coming out very soon. But in this video, I'm talking about this one. It's a departure from the original collection. And hopefully the new version is going to be a lot more exciting. This was a bit of a dud for me, but I enjoyed a lot more than everything else that I've spoken about. So that's why it's ranked here at number 11. And it's got cardamom, it's got vanilla. So you've got these kind of, aromatic, pungent notes of cardamom. It's got that kind of soapiness against the vanilla. And vanilla cardamom really does work wonderfully together. So you do end up smelling great. And then you've got that narcissus note in here and cedar. So the narcissus note is in H24 by Hermes. So it's got this very interesting yellow floral note, a bit minerally and, a bit earthy as well. Not necessarily very flowery. So it's a very interesting note to add here, which does work. But for me, the fragrance was a bit boring in comparison to the previous series, which is it still part of the same series or is this a new series? We don't know, but I'm anticipating the new version. Well, hopefully it'll be better, much more stronger than this. But in the end, this is definitely deserving of the number 11 spot. So this is Gentleman's Society by Givenchy. So it's Givenchy Gentleman's Society. And this next one at number 10 was a major surprise for me. I'm shocked how great it is. This is from the House of Montblanc Explorer Platinum. This one right here. Not a person that really speaks about Montblanc fragrances. But for me, this one, nothing groundbreaking, nothing very interestingly original, but I love the way it smells on me. It's kind of that dumb reach kind of fragrance. It's got violet leaves, clary sage, cedarwood. So even though they don't mention this muskiness, it does have something like that in it. Maybe perhaps it has molecular notes in here, like ambroxan, something like that, to give me this kind of very sexiness. And for me, with my body chemistry, it smells really great. So it's the kind of fragrance I would just reach for just to smell great, not have any like fragrances that are a bit exhausting to wear, very intense and, sweet and musky and leathery. It just smells really great. It's very aromatic. It's very woody, very fresh. It smells like the outdoors and things like that. And then there's a reminder of fragrances from Marley and the House of Initio. For me, it's kind of has faint reminders of something like Oud for Happiness, even Calon from Marley, but faint, with the mixture of what they've added in this fragrance to create this kind of an effect. So I really enjoy this one. That's why I've ranked it here at number 10. This is Montblanc's Explorer Platinum. So up next, we've got a fragrance from the House of Brioni. It's Brioni EDP Essential, this one right here. So this one, definitely much better than everything else that I've already spoken about, but I wanted a little more tomato leaves, and sadly it didn't come. But as a collection, I really, really love the Brioni men's series of fragrances. And even though this is not my favorite of the bunch, still is a really great release. So it's bergamot, tomato leaves. We've got cardamom, patchouli, tonka beans, and sandalwood, amber and frankincense. So you have some light smokiness, definitely ambery touches when it's drying down. And of course, sandalwood and the patchouli and the tonka are all in the base notes. Up top, it's very fresh and spicy, and the tomato leaves don't last too long. So even though you experience it, it does tend to go away. So it adds a kind of a green, bitter, aromatic touch against all the freshness and the spices and all the woods and amber and smokiness in the base. Still very nice release. I just wanted a little more tomato leaf because I love that. Maybe they felt that most people don't like tomato leaf, so they didn't make it last too long. But either way, this is Brioni EDP Essential. So this next fragrance is from the house of Armani. It's Acqua di Gio Parfum, this one right here. I really loved the Profumo, and I think they should have left the Profumo alone. But I think what's going on is all the brands are coming out with parfums, all the brands are coming out with elixirs. So that's what that they did here. This is not as good as the Profumo, but still it's pretty great. But also I'm a bit bored of this series. So many flankers of this series. Like, this is just like how many? 50th flanker? Still, it's a fairly decent release against everything else here. It's marine notes, rosemary essence, clary sage, geranium bourbon, bergamot, patchouli, and incense. It does have some light reminders of the Profumo. I still prefer the Profumo. The Profumo for me was so nice and robust. Smelled really, really great. Here, it's a bit of not necessarily identical. It's a bit more modernized because it's been redone. The Profumo came out back in like the mid 2010s or something, but still definitely deserves to be here at number 8. But I wish they kept the Profumo alone because I really, really love that fragrance. Do they still sell that one? I do have a couple of backup bottles, but for now, Acqua di Gio Parfum should do the trick. Next up, going to the house of Brunello Cucinelli. It's Brunello Cucinelli pour Homme, this one right here. I actually really, really like this one. Even though it's extremely overpriced. In fact, the whole brand is overpriced. I think this great job by Olivier Cresp. He created this fragrance. So it's Cypress, Angelica, Ginger, Black Pepper, Clary Sage. I feel like this is one of the best Cypress fragrances out there. I really, really love it. And it kind of might remind you of something like the Acqua di Parma Cypress fragrance, but I much prefer this one over that. And even though it's a designer and it's overpriced, if you can afford it, definitely check it out because it smells fantastic. I like everything, the way it's working together. It's a bit powdery, very fresh and zingy, spicy as well, and aromatic. And that Angelica creates it for a powdery effect and a bit vegetal effect as well. So I think the whole overall experience is really, really classy. Like if you like the clothes of this house, then you might like this fragrance. And I think they did a great job to match the overall ambiance and the styling of the brand to come up with something very classy like this. So it's Brunello Cucinelli pour Homme at number 7. Next, it's Tom Ford's Grey Vetiver Parfum. And even though I've said I'm a bit bored of vetiver, I think this is a really great job done with when you compare it to the original, because the original has gotten very light. This is super, super intense and beefy, really, really overdosed with a lot of vetiver Haiti. And then there's also the orange flower here, the orange flower or orange blossom note. It's a nice contrast to the kind of earthy and almost metallic as well, because there's a very screechy metallic touch here. And definitely this bottle right here, the effect of this bottle, the coloring and everything is the way it wears. It's definitely very, very screechy for me when metallic touches do come in. And I think the fragrance has just been beefed up and sharpened up. But along the way, you also experience some leathery undertones and aromatic spicy touches as well for a really great vetiver fragrance. And even though I'm a bit bored of vetiver, as I said, but when you're ranking all these fragrances next to all of these, this one definitely does satisfy when you're comparing them against everything else. As a smell, it's really great. As performance, it's really great. And you must get past that screechy metallic touch, but if you do, you're going to really enjoy this one. So this is Tom Ford's Grey Vetiver Parfum at number 6. Oh yes, I'm putting this one here at number 5 because I really, really like the way Annick Menardo did this fragrance. This is Lalix Ancre Indigo, as I should say. I almost said Ancre Noir. I'm not sure where that came from, but I'm so used to saying Ancre Noir, but this is Ancre Indigo. But yeah, really, really great fragrance. Not anything original or very original, but but I like the fact that the black tea is so smoky here with the vetiver. So the vetiver and the black tea combined together, they give you a very smoky edge because vetiver tends to go smoky as well. But along the way, you have juniper berries, pink pepper, saffron, patchouli, bergamot. So earthy touches, leathery touches, very smoky touches. Definitely really a great job. Only thing is, it's tea, so there's this very interesting contrast of this rough and earthy vetiver note with that kind of very smooth, very cozy touch of the black tea, which also creates the whole smoky edge. But really a wonderful job here. I think this might become very popular once it gets to the discounters, and it's also a bit tough to get here in the States because nobody's really selling this. I had to order it from the Lalique online boutique for the USA, and thankfully I got it and I really enjoyed it. If you haven't caught my review, go catch it, but this is Lalique Ancre Indigo at number 5. Next, going to the house of Gucci, it's Gucci Guilty Elixir de Parfum pour Homme. Such a long name for this one. This is an interesting fragrance. I really enjoy this one. That's why it's ranked here at number 4, not only because it's an elixir concentration, so highly concentrated, but it also kind of reminds me a little bit of Amouage Reflection Man with the DNA of the original Le Male series of fragrances plus Fleur de Mal from the house of Jean-Paul Gaultier. If you've ever gotten your nose off on Fleur de Mal, you might understand what I'm talking about. But I've always thought that Reflection Man had some Fleur de Mal-like qualities to begin with. So that's why I'm getting this whole connection here. But here it's Orris, Ambrofix, benzoin, patchouli, vanilla, nutmeg. I think they did a great job with this one. And thankfully, it doesn't smell like the original Gucci Guilty for men. I don't really care for that collection. I enjoyed the Absolute. I enjoyed the cologne, but everything else is kind of boring to me. But this one, I think they did a great job and it smells fantastic. So this is Gucci Guilty Elixir, the Parfum pour Homme at number 4. And then at number 3, we've got Boss Bottle Elixir from the house of Hugo Boss. Yeah, it doesn't smell anything like the original. I like the original a lot more than the original of the Gucci Guilty series because that was one of my favorite fragrances in the late 90s. And again, it smells nothing like it, but Annick Bernardo and her co-perfumer did a great job with this one. It's lots of patchouli, lavandin for amber touches, lots of woods like cedar. There's vetiver here for the woody earthiness. And then, of course, cardamom and frankincense for a really, really great earthy, ambery, resinous and smoky take on of, male fragrance that's really super potent and amazing smelling. So if you don't know this one, check it out. I think it's a great fragrance for men. Thankfully, we've got some really great releases as of late from the designers for men, and this is one of the best. That's the reason why I've ranked it here at number 3. And I think if you like the original series and you haven't checked this one yet, you're not going to find any similarities because there's nothing there. There's no apple or vanilla here. But if you have an open mind, you'll really enjoy this one. And I think they should kind of stop this series and move on and start a new series. Personally, that's what I think, but I don't think that'll ever happen. But either way, Boss Bottled Elixir at number 3. Number 2 is from the house of Jean-Paul Gaultier. It's Le Male Elixir. Yeah, I've got messages, some really mean messages saying, why do I like this fragrance? It smells cheap. I really like this fragrance because I like the way it smells. I mean, let me like what I like, right? So this is actually really great. I really love this one because it does remind me of the original Le Male series with the whole mint and lavender. But they have spiked this thing up with loads of sweet notes. There's benzoin and vanilla, lots of it. And then there's tonka beans. It's a sweet, syrupy, powdery take on aromatic notes. And I think it's super delicious. It smells great. One of the best releases of 2023 for the men. And you gotta like sweet fragrances to enjoy this particular fragrance because there's loads of it. The vanilla and the benzoin, as I said, is really, really super potent. It creates for an ambery effect, powdery effect. And against the mint, lavender, and tonka together, fantastic. Tonka in here also kind of creates a bit of a tobacco-ish touch. And that's what I like about it. It's sweet and honeyed together with all those sweet notes and contrasted with the aromatics. I think it's a winner. So this is from the house of Jean-Paul Gaultier, Le Male Elixir. Le Male Elixir is so good. But this fragrance is the number 1 fragrance for me of 2023. It's Guerlain's Habit Rouge Rouge Privé. Have you gotten your nose on this one yet? I think if you can hunt it down, do hunt it down because it's super amazing. And what I love about this one, it's modernized, but also keeping the vintage qualities of it. And it's amped up with animalic leather. Oh man, so good. You have lots of leather here. It's tanned leather along with patchouli, vanilla, iris, and orange together make for a very intoxicating, sweet, sexy vanillic take on the original. Yes, the leather has been amped up here, really amped up against all the vanilla and the patchouli, and I think it's the perfect amount of amping up. Some people might find this a bit challenging because the leather does come off a bit animalic, but I quite like this animalic fragrance. I'm not the biggest fan of uber animalics, and this is not uber animalic to me, but it depends on your tolerance level and how much you can tolerate animalics versus, you know, no animalics. This one, to some people who can't tolerate it, comes off very animalic, because that's what I've heard in various comments. And then there's the people that say this is a masterpiece, it smells great, I love the original and this one's even better, things like that. I really love this one. And I hope you guys can get your hands on it if you haven't yet, because this is definitely an amazing fragrance release for the men. If they can make fragrances like this here at Guerlain, I'm sure all the designers can make fragrances like this, because it's possible. Either way, Habit Rouge, Rouge Privé from the House of Guerlain is #1. And the reason I've listed Guerlain here in this series, or in this collection of fragrances, is because these fragrances generally are sold at Sephora in Europe. I don't see them here. So Guerlain's men's designer fragrances, you can find them. So I categorize them here as designers. But if I was to move on to the Guerlain L'Art et la Métier collection, I would feature those in the niche category. But either way, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please do let me know. Put a comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts are on these fragrances, and let me know what's missing. I know there's a lot out there. I didn't get to pick up every single fragrance release for men. Some I didn't care for, some I didn't bother with, but these definitely I do have, and I wanted to put them in a rank list. Either way, thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, as I said, please list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.